What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the bar. So before I let everyone in, today's video is a bit of a theory, but it's also an explained video. And for you anime onlys, this video is gonna contain spoilers for My Hero Academia and My Hero Academia Vigilantes. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you go read some manga and come on back. As for the theory, well, over the past few weeks, we've been introduced to a new character that's been operating as Popstep's manager. I'm going to explain who he is, but also I'll be constructing a narrative that he is secretly the villain number 6. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if you enjoyed the video, throw up a like. Alright, you waited long enough. Let's get to the bottom of who number 6 truly is and why he's potentially targeting Popstep. Alright, open up the doors!
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Okay, so before we go into my theory, let me explain who number 6 actually is, because we still don't really have a lot of information about him. From what we can interpret from his origins, number 6 is a construct created by the Villain Factory. And if you don't know what the Villain Factory is, it's a secret organization that as of right now in Vigilantes, they're the ones that are responsible for being the main trafficker of the quirk-enhancing drug Trigger. Now, I'm only going to mention the factory a little bit in this video, but if you want to know more about the organization, click on the card above right now or the link down below to know more. So back to number 6. Like I said, he's one of the most notable villains in Vigilantes, and from what we know, he's born in captivity over at the Villain Factory. Now, while at the Villain Factory, number 6's younger days were spent obsessing over the hero known as Overclock. We now know Overclock to be the hero-turned-vigilante Knuckle Duster, and number 6 suffers from celebrity worship syndrome, which means that he's gone so far in his admiration for Overclock that when Overclock sustained an injury to his face, number 6, in a very Joker-esque way, took a blade to his face to mimic the scar that was inflicted upon his idol. Though when it came time to leave the factory and begin his journey into attacking heroic society, the Villain Factory placed number 6 in charge of being the lead distributor for the drug Trigger. See, the kicker was, though, this version of Trigger that he began to peddle was a whole new type of formula. And from their unique brand, they caused the average user to become prone to violent outbursts, turning them into what police have coined impromptu villains. This isn't the only goal of the factory and number 6, as when the results of the tainted Trigger became even more promising, they began to kidnap the people that show a higher tolerance to the tainted Trigger. And from there, they inject these poor people even more times, causing their bodies to mutate. These people passed the realm of impromptu villains and proceeded straight into what's been called next level villains. We actually get to see number 6 make his first major move as the pusher of Trigger, and it happens to be maintaining the shipping channels of Trigger at the SS Mall. Though what he doesn't know is that the police have already been onto the Villain Factory, and while he's undercover at the mall, the police are also undercover, and they're deep into the investigation of the SS Mall. And while the police are doing surveillance, police detective Monica is undercover, and she comes across smuggled batches of Trigger. She confronts one of the many workers over the matter, and the one person that Monica happened to single out was number 6 himself. And right there, we actually figure out that number 6 has an ability that he's able to disguise himself really well. He then makes a bunch of mechs run crazy, and then to make his escape, he finally unleashes his quirk, Overclock. From there, he disappears, leaving several officers injured, including Naomasa Tsukauchi. So back to his quirk, or rather his quirks. His first quirk is called Overclock, and if you want an in-depth explanation about this quirk, I suggest you check out my video on Knuckle Duster. In that video, I go over the positives and the negatives of the quirk. Though long story short is, when Overclock is initially activated, a huge boost of adrenaline overflows inside of the person's brain, granting them quicker than normal reflexes. As for how fast the person moves, well, in some instances, the user is actually able to move so quickly that they'll perceive the world as frozen. Though the main plot point about this quirk is that originally it did not belong to number 6. This quirk belonged to his pro-hero idol, Overclock, and during an event off-screen, Overclock's quirk was taken from him and given to number 6. When it's finally revealed that he has the quirk of his old idol, the newly named vigilante Knuckle Duster puts 2 and 2 together very quickly and realizes that these are the people that are also responsible for the kidnapping of his daughter. And right then and there, Knuckle Duster declares number 6 public enemy number 1. When it comes to the theft of quirks though, we only know one person who's capable of stealing quirks and giving them to other people, and that's All For One. And that's kind of scary because this is making our favorite vigilantes tiptoe very close to arguably the strongest villain in the series. In addition to Overclock, the police finally figured out where the Trigger and Next Level villains were being produced. The heroes and police burst into the Nomura Pharma Corporation, and they stumble across Number 6 again amidst his planning of killing the heroes atop the Sky Egg. It's revealed here that Number 6 actually pulled a Medora Madara, whatever you want to call it, and he injected cells into his body from these bomber constructs that were created by the villain factory. These cells enable his punches to explode, instantly granting him like a makeshift explosion quirk. He's also able to regenerate his body too after the explosions due to Overclock helping along the regeneration process and because, he's not human. Either way, during the raid, Number 6 escapes the clutches of the police again, and he watches as his attempts to murder Captain Celebrity from a building nearby are thwarted. And after he lets off one final big-ass explosion, All Might shows up to save the day. And while Number 6 laments about his attempt at killing everybody failing, a voice appears, and it's Knuckle Duster with his literal sights on Number 6. Number 6 then uses Overclock to confront the quirkless vigilante, referring to him as his master. And from there, Knuckle Duster and Number 6 battle it out, destroying the building that they're standing on in the process. Afterwards, the police are trying to figure out what happened, with the only evidence of their confrontation post-explosion being blood left behind by the two people. We also find out something pretty cool here, where kind of people have like a predisposition towards people that are mutants. Like, it's kind of messed up that they have this, but it's something that people these days have to stop themselves from having. And we honestly don't know if Number 6 is a created person or someone that was, manipulated to become this corrupt. Either way, the fight between Knuckle Duster and Number 6 is super climactic, and Knuckle Duster being able to keep up with a quirked person is ridiculous. But I guess, he does know how to beat his own quirk. You would think that it's kind of like big brain, but for a character that resorts to punching every chance he gets, he's really able to capitalize on these certain situations. As for the future of the villain factory, though it's been thoroughly destroyed, I feel like the person that's responsible for the factory is none other than Dr. Ujiko, the man who could be considered the closest confidant to All For One. All of the pieces from the main story and Vigilantes are pointing towards this character right now, and like I've said previously, I wouldn't be surprised if the predecessor to the Nomura program has roots in Number 6 and the Villain Factory. I mean, think about it. Each next level villain was a bit mindless and reminiscent of a Nomu, so I wouldn't be surprised here. Okay, so now we're gonna get into my theory. Cue the time skip in My Hero Academia Vigilantes. And at this point, Knuckle Duster and Number 6 have both been missing for about 3 years or so. Popstep is realizing that her time as an idol is coming to an end, but the thing that she still wants is to be relevant. So one day, she decides to branch out as a solo artist, and we've seen that Koichi has kind of given up the role of being Popstep's manager, and now there's going to be a new face assisting the group. This person is a man only known as Nomura. He's a so-called entertainment manager. Now, my theory is that this guy is in fact the villain Number 6, and I have some evidence to support my claim here. Okay, so like I said before, Popstep is really trying to branch out as a solo artist, so one day she decides to set up an impromptu performance outside, but instead of dressing up as Popstep, she decides to go out as Kazuo and finally show people what she's got. Unfortunately, she kind of chose a pretty rough neighborhood to get her start, and as soon as she starts to perform, some thugs show up and ask her if she's got a permit to perform in the area, and by a strike of luck, her manager from the idol group happens to be nearby, and he scoops her up and brings her into a nearby cafe where they can avoid the thugs for the time being. There, Popstep shares her music with him, and he's moved by it. But if there's one thing that makes me super suspicious, it's that he has the same exact build as Number 6. I mean, even his eyes are pretty reminiscent of Number 6's, considering they're lacking pupils. The biggest physical cue here is his hair. Number 6 has an iconic ponytail. Pull that ponytail out, and you have Nomura. Also, Number 6 does have a history of being able to drastically change his physical appearance, like before, so a scar disappearing is definitely possible here. So while in the cafe, the goal is to make Popstep trust him and give him more responsibility within her career. The one thing that he's trying to do here is rely on trust, and he's depending on it in his betrayal. Afterwards, him and Pop leave the cafe and they encounter the same 3 thugs again, except this time they're actually ready to fight Popstep and Nomura. Nomura insists on not fighting, and he actually deals with one of the gang members by putting his arm in a lock relatively quickly. And as Popstep jumps away, Nomura pulls out a card, revealing that he's a pro hero. I mean, yeah, pulling out a license could definitely throw us off the scent and debunk my theory, but it's really not enough for me. Licenses can be forged. I mean, when the thugs initially attacked, you're a pro hero. Why would you run away from the police if not to hide your identity? I mean, yeah, maybe he's not trying to get these people in trouble, but he was definitely hiding the fact he was a hero until the last minute. He whipped out his hero license like it was nothing at that point though. Also, he didn't wield this quirk at all during this fight, and honestly, it really feels like he was avoiding the cops. As for why number 6 would go after Popstep, my guess is his true target is not Pop. We've seen that number 6 is about as brash and immature as Shigaraki once was. So when something doesn't go his way, he tends to melt down. And granted, he doesn't have the same, rampant murderous tendencies that Shigaraki has, but he had no problem shooting a police officer with their own weapon. But if I had to guess why he's targeting Pop, prior to the time skip, number 6 attempted to kill Captain Celebrity at the behest of the Villain Factory. His attempt was thwarted due to Knuckle Duster and All Might's intervention, but the person who stopped the assassination attempt was Koichi, meaning that number 6 knows the easiest way to get Koichi to come out and fight you would be kidnapping Popstep. If this theory is right, Nomura is positioning himself to suddenly pull a fast one on our protagonists. Also, another reason could be that he dubs himself the one and only student of Overclock, which means that he would impulsively want to just dispose of Koichi. He did say once upon a time that he will become the true Overclock. This sets the stage for Pop's final performance come August, and I will tell you right now, since Vigilantes is a prequel to our main series, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow it threaded its way back to the main series. I mean, maybe when number 6 can't hold his true form, he turns into the iconic sludge villain from the very first episode. I know, that's probably a stretch, but we can expect something like this to happen. We've kind of seen All Might show up in a One Punch Man capacity in Vigilantes, where he kind of just shows up, saves the day, and leaves. But the past 3 months have seen the stories intermingle so much that I can't possibly see them moving away from what they've been doing. And personally, I for one would love to see Deku meet Koichi in Deka City. It's a town that before being taken over by the Paranormal Liberation Front was already against Japan's societal norms of quirk usage. Meaning, it would be the perfect place for someone like Koichi to go, as he shares some of the same ideals, but he would continue being a hero, contrary to the others being villains. But yeah, I think we're gonna find out who's running the Villain Factory around the same time that we also find out what's going on in the hospital over in My Hero Academia. But most of all, we'll find out what happened to Knuckle Duster after all this time has passed. Additionally though, there are some rumblings, and by that I mean I've had conversations with Vocal Pineapple, that the person that Chisaki killed for encroaching on his turf was number 6. Now I see this theory happening, and it would be really cool to kind of bring Chisaki into Vigilantes, kind of like how Stain appeared in Vigilantes after he was in My Hero Academia, but I'd really like for Knuckle Duster and Koichi to be the ones who kind of handle number 6 in this situation. Alright, all theories aside, because my head's starting to hurt here, I hope you like learning more about number 6. I'm kind of hoping my theory about him being Nomura is right. I mean, I did kind of call Shirakumo turning heel, but at the same time I didn't. So this time, I'm gonna go with my gut. And if I'm wrong, I expect everyone to tell me, Dan, you're wrong, what the fuck, man? Either way, be sure to throw a like if you enjoyed today's video. And this is Dan saying, get out of my bar!